Well, here's the real question now. What is the economic impact of the midterms? What's it going to look like? So far, not much. Seems Republicans will still keep the House, but it's still up in the air. Looks like they will, though. And if they do, are we looking at some moderate spending reductions? How about inflation? Where's that going? And more money to foreign sources like Ukraine? With me to talk about that, the Executive Vice President at the National Taxpayers Union, Brandon Arnold. Brandon, how are you today?
Doing great. Good afternoon to you.
Good to see you. So what is the impact here on the economy, on this country? I don't see any improvements in energy policy. I see the Fed is going to raise rates again. The Fed wants to get at least 6% unemployment in this country, break the back of inflation. But in order to do that, he'll break the back of working families along the way, won't he?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the concern, of course. Right now, the velocity at which the Fed has increased rates is very, very concerning. That those impacts tend to be lagged. That means that as they raise rates, it could take months or even longer before we feel their real economic impact. And those economic impacts are in some instances, very, very consequential. It's not just higher mortgage rates. It's not just more expensive automobiles when you factor in financing. But you can have longer term effects, including to the federal budget, as it becomes more expensive for the Congress to spend money that we don't have, to borrow money from the Chinese and elsewhere. Those costs, of course, go on the backs of taxpayers. So that means more spending, even if that spending might just be to spend more money because we have higher debt servicing costs. So these are snowballing problems that are going to just keep cascading and cascading. And, of course, at the end, they fall upon taxpayers.
It has been the most predictable economic failure in world history. It's been going on for about 25 years, Brandon, in my estimation, because every year we hear the Democrats say, oh, we've got to control spending a little bit. Republicans, oh, we've got to control spending. And yet somehow we've gone from, what was the national debt when George W. Bush was in office? $12 trillion, and suddenly it was 15, and then it was 20, and you know, it just continues on. Now we're at 31 and a half. It never really slows down. And, of course, Joe Biden's out there. We've cut the deficit, which is incredibly meaningless because even a smaller deficit still adds to the debt. And when those interest rates go up, we're in real trouble. And then you realize that China, Russia, and Saudi Arabia, among others, are working on another world reserve currency, which would really hurt America. All of these things are going on, right?
Yeah, and the frustrating thing is you mentioned Biden claiming credit for deficit reduction, which is complete baloney. The only thing he's done is not continue these extraordinarily expensive programs that were launched during the COVID pandemic. Those programs turned off based on law, not based on anything that he did. So that's why the deficit has fallen slightly, but not that much. We have trillion-dollar deficits pretty much as far as the eye can see. The last time we had divided government of this nature in 2011 with a Democratic president, we were able to institute some modest spending reforms. But of course, they dismantled those spending reforms over the course of their 10-year existence, and now they're gone. We should try to put something that actually has teeth to it, some spending reforms that actually are hard for Congress to break, because we do need to get spending under control if we want to get inflation under control.
Yeah. Spending has to come under control if we want inflation under control. Brandon, newsflash, that's not going to happen. I'm sorry. I'm here to help you. I am reality slapping right now. Because, well, I guess we'll find out. If the Republicans do control the House, which I believe they do, there's 19 races left. They only need like 5 now, I think, to have control. And people say, well, it's just a slight, the gavel is one size. Either you have it or you don't. It's not small, medium, and large gavel. You get one gavel. Nancy Pelosi had a whopping 5-vote margin. And look at all the damage she did with the Inflation Reduction Act and all sorts of other spending deals that went on. So having the gavel, preferably in somebody else's hand besides Kevin McCarthy, but I have no control over that, we can do some important things. We can do the investigations that have to be done. We can ask questions. And apparently the Democrats want to throw subpoenas around on Washington, on Capitol Hill, so that Republicans should do the same to find answers to important questions, yes or no.
Yeah, I mean, having the gavel is huge, especially in the House of Representatives, where the majority can pretty much run roughshod over the minority as long as they can band together. Now, that's a big if because we've already seen a lot of discord amongst Republicans, Kevin McCarthy possibly being challenged. But once you have some degree of unanimity across your conference, even with a very small majority, you do have those gavels. You have subpoena power. You can bring in administration officials. You can start to ask questions. Where are these dollars being spent as they go out the door for COVID? Who are all these entities that are getting billions and billions of taxpayer funds? Those are important questions to be asked. We saw how Democrats have used those gavels over the past years with investigations of the Trump administration. Well, now the shoe is on the other foot. That's very, very important.
It is very important. Plus, all of these reckless spending plans, because not all of the money's into the system yet, right, Brandon? A lot of it's still to come. The Inflation Reduction Act was however many $1 trillion that was, and all these other things that were done. And look, the Republicans have the ability to throw the brakes. The question is, will they? Will they throw the brakes and say, we're not doing this? We'll find out. Of course, it could be in a couple more weeks before we actually have 218 locked up, because for some reason in California it takes them. And the reason I feel confident about California, several races up in the air, most of them are Republican incumbents, and they have small leads, but they're always small victories in those districts. They're always close. So I think we're in good shape. Go ahead.
No, I'm encouraged as well. I do think that Republicans are going to pull it out. And what I'd like to see first and foremost is a really close investigation of the $80 billion. Like you said, those dollars haven't gone out the door yet. They have been appropriated, but they will be spent over the course of the next 10 years. But I want to make sure each and every one of those dollars is going to the extent that we can, to good things, not bad things at the IRS. And good things is a relative term, but I'd rather see those dollars go to things like customer service. So you have people actually picking up the phone to answer people's questions when they have problems with their taxes, rather than enforcement activities, which means cracking skulls and going after taxpayers, trying to harass them for more money.
Yep, there you go. Brandon Arnold, we have to figure this out. We don't want 87,000 new IRS agents beating on people making less than 50 grand. I don't anyhow. It's not fair to the hardworking people of this country, period, paragraph. Brandon, it's always good to see you and good to see a smile on your face, my friend. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Greatly appreciate it. After the break, big tech running into a lot of problems. We'll explain up next on America's Voice Live.